Hey everyone, it's Carter King. If you're an educator, a leader, or just a parent who wants to teach kids about space, check out my newest book, Carter's Journey Through Space. It's available now on Amazon, Target, and bookstores everywhere. Come explore the universe with me.
Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create environments where people thrive. Through real conversations, practical strategies, and powerful stories, we equip leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself to build cultures rooted in purpose, performance, and authenticity. Because culture isn't something you talk about, it's something you live. This is the Contagious Culture Podcast. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is simple: to help you create an ecosystem, an environment where people thrive. Look, I have on someone today that I highly, highly respect. Somebody that when you think of the word disruptor, when you think of the word trailblazer, when you think of the word unicorn, it is this person. He is, man, and a thought leader. He's just an amazing human being, somebody that leads with their heart, and somebody that is truly creating change in the social impact space. When you have your next event, your next conference, your next podcast or panel, you have to have this person there. My man, Vu. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Kyle. I'm pretty good. I'm calling in from Seattle, which is on Duwamish land. And things have been great. How are you?
I'm amazing. I really am. I was been having a lot of conversations, and people ask like, "How are you?" And normally you're just good. But I'm really operating in flow, and I really feel like I'm living the life that I prayed for some years ago. And I just have this spirit of abundance where I just feel super happy all the time, and it's such a great feeling.
That's amazing. I mean, considering everything that's going on right now,
No,
the
literally.
fact that you can hold on to this joy, I highly commend you for that, because I think it's a little hard to hold on to joy these days sometimes.
It is, and I think I'm finding more opportunities to be grateful of the things that I see, that I can touch, that I have around me, rather than allowing the noise of the economy and the administration and all of the mess that's going on around us to dilute or put a shadow on the light that I feel like we have. And there's so many ecosystems and spaces that I get invited to or we're creating, that there's really people out here doing really neat things like yourself.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I feel like one of my friends said this is probably our chance to do our best work ever.
Yeah.
Right. So everything we do is meaningful. So I try to take that into heart every day.
I agree. Yeah. For somebody who doesn't even know who you are, like I know who you are. I feel like I stalked you online before I actually reached out. How would you describe who you are and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I am more like a rabble rouser type. I like to just when people get, I think someone says, what is it? To afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. I kind of want to take, I think maybe it was MLK who said that. It's like our responsibility, right? People who are too comfortable, we need to like, why are you so comfortable? Is
That's
it because
good.
you're hoarding wealth? What's going on?
That's good.
Right. And the people who are afflicted, they're like suffering because of these oppressive systems, then we try to figure out how to help them. So that's kind of my sort of guiding light, I guess, philosophy. I read a blog. I guess maybe that was the question. I read a blog called Nonprofit AF.
And you wrote a book that is, I will say, very spicy, but it is it's one of those it's one of those books that I'm just saying what y'all are thinking. And I was courageous and bold enough to write and say the things that I feel like are so necessary. And every time I talk to you and read your posts and read your blogs, I'm just like, man, just the courage and the boldness to be able to actually release these thoughts. Like, can you just from a human level, What did it take for you to build that courage and boldness to be able to say the things that we actually needed to hear in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that I say, I guess some people would think controversial. For example, when I talk about fundraising in the nonprofit sector, right?
Yeah.
Fundraising, we are told that we're supposed to treat donors like heroes, that we're supposed to be constantly thankful to them, and to have this attitude of gratitude, which sounds great because it rhymes. Right? And so and I just came along. I was like, why are we doing this? A lot of wealth in this country has been built on like stolen indigenous land and slavery and tax avoidance and worker exploitation, environmental degradation. So a lot of companies and a lot of wealthy people shouldn't even have all this much money in the first place. Right? So they're hoarding all this money that they shouldn't have. And now they're giving a tiny amount of it back to people. And then we're expected to write them handwritten thank you notes.
That's good.
There's something wrong with that.
There is.
And so I just try to point that out. And a lot of people are like, I thought the same thing. I just couldn't say that because, it doesn't rhyme. Like the attitude of gratitude or whatever.
I have so many questions, Vu. And
Yeah.
it's gonna get there. We're gonna get there. And I've been so excited to have this conversation because when you bring that up, I think of just this one question that's burning in my head. Is philanthropy helping communities, or is it quietly maintaining control over them?
Oh, you're just gonna go straight there, Kyle.
Let's just go there. Let's just do it.
Well, if we're gonna get philosophical, then it really depends on how we define philanthropy. The way that a lot of communities define philanthropy is not the way that white people in power right now define philanthropy, right? Philanthropy means like the love of mankind, the love of the human beings. And in many of the communities and many cultures, we practice philanthropy in different ways. Like I remember growing up in Vietnam, right? And when someone dies or someone, like the community gets together to help pay for the funeral as an example of philanthropy, right? So community helping one another, that is philanthropy. So that type of philanthropy has always been helpful, has always been how many cultures from like oppressed backgrounds, more on the margins have survived like white supremacy and capitalism over decades and decades. It's because of philanthropy or love of one another. But over the last couple of decades, philanthropy has been corrupted towards this model where it's like rich people hoarding resources, controlling, avoiding paying taxes, and then getting to dictate what are the issues that they care about that then society now has to work on. Like if rich people are like, oh, I care about like puppies and whatever, then I'm gonna focus on that. Or when my kid has a disease and now I'm gonna care about this disease, I'm just gonna give all my money to this. It's not to say that these causes are bad or whatever, but the idea that a select few people, a few rich people, get to determine which issues all of society now has to pay attention to. Like, no, that is not good for community.
So who really holds the power, though, in the nonprofit ecosystem?
It's donors and funders, most of whom are white.
When you think about that, that's a tough conversation to have. Why are we so afraid, though, in the nonprofit ecosystem to name that directly?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of power dynamics. There's the fact that we rely on their funding in order to carry out many programs and services that our community members need.
Yeah.
So it's they hold the power. Like if you say something to offend certain people and they have money, then they may stop giving you money, in which case then your community will suffer because now you can't provide housing and food to people.
That's good. So what do we do differently, Vu? Like, I'm a nonprofit leader. I'm wanting to grow. I'm making impact within my community, but we haven't established a quality or sustainable earned revenue model. But we don't want to just build our programming around the priorities of funders. But we recognize we need resources. It's such a weird double-edged sword. Like, what do we do?
Yeah, these are the types of things that I thought about when I was writing this book, which is called Reimagining Nonprofits and
Hmm.
Philanthropy. And it tries to address some of these questions that you've been asking,
Yeah.
right? And I think that we have to kind of get out of this mindset that like we need to, here's a problem, and it has all these symptoms, and we need to
Yeah.
find money to address it, and we need to start looking about like, why are there these problems in the first place? I mean, we can still address it. We need to start thinking about like what do we need to do so that we don't even have these problems, and in fact we don't even need to be in existence as a nonprofit anymore. We can
Yeah.
just close, because then the problem is not there. We can just go out of business and do something else, right? In which case that will require us to think a lot bigger. Like think about, like, I don't know, like a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
In the book I mentioned a homeless organization,
Yeah.
and they were celebrating their 50th year anniversary, right? And I think it was on stage. I think maybe the board chair went up and did a toast to like 50 more years, to 50 more years, right? And I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience just like clapped and cheered, and
Yeah.
but if you think about it, that's not good. You don't want to be around 50 more years. You want to
That's
solve
so
homelessness and be done with it.
that's so powerful. I had a conversation. This was last week with a friend of mine, Claire. She runs the Strong Like Sloan Foundation, and I asked her, it's like, what is your vision of your organization within the next 4 years? And then she was like, to not even be in existence. She was like, if we actually do our job, then we will cure cancer, and there's no need for our organization. And it's interesting that you connect with what she said, is because like, wow, so many organizations, even in my city in Charlotte, they have these massive galas that take hundreds of thousands of dollars to put on and make millions of dollars, but we still have homeless people, and we still have affordable housing crisis, and we still have healthcare issues and food shortages and all of these things. So rather than us raise money for this symptom, why don't we just raise money to solve the actual problem in the first place? Why do we have this interesting dichotomy within the nonprofit sector where we're so focused on the symptom, but not really investing towards solving these real deal needs within our communities?
Yeah, well, we need to do both. We need to address the symptoms because people are suffering, and we
Yeah.
also need to do the systems change work, the advocacy work. I think that a lot of people are reluctant, and a lot of funders are reluctant to fund that work because it requires us to be political. It requires us to be loud,
Mhm.
and to ruffle feathers, and on occasion to burn bridges. Because how do you change systems when the people are in power are like benefiting from? They're literally
Yeah.
getting rich from the fact that we have poverty level wages, and so on, and workers not being paid, and there's homelessness. Like they get rich, and then there's an entire system that tells them that when they do give a tiny little bit of amount of money, then they are treated like heroes and get handwritten thank you notes,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. That's really hard to to convince people to do.
How do you define impact? Like what is true impact, Vu, in your opinion?
What is true impact? I mean, it really depends on the organization. I mean, for most of us, I think impact is being able to again address the problems that you're trying to solve, and then solving it, and then getting the hell out of there and becoming a wedding singer or whatever it is that you think about doing, right? Um, if we think about like what is the most effective, we might get into stuff where this is when I start getting into trouble and start burning bridges a bit. It's kind of like if we think about who is the most effective nonprofits and movements, it's conservative right-wing movements.
Interesting.
Like if you think about impact, who's really impactful? Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization.
Yeah.
In 2024, it had revenues of $87 million or something.
Oh my God.
And it has like over 1,000 chapters on in high schools, and nearly 1,000 chapters in colleges to
Yeah.
help train kids to see like the conservative viewpoints and
Yeah.
turn them conservative. So it's incredibly effective. And to the point where I think it's probably planning to expand to thousands more chapters across the country.
Wow.
So, and do we have anything like that on the progressive or the left side? We have plenty of organizations that do amazing work, but no one is funding them to the same revenues level as Turning Point USA.
Can we break that down though? Why? Like what is so different on that side versus the other side? And is there things that we could learn from that side to be able to really drive more revenue opportunities and then impact reach opportunities as well?
There's plenty of things we can learn. There was a report that came out, I think it was 35 years ago. It was written by a researcher named Sally Covington. And she analyzed the differences between conservative-leaning foundations and left-leaning, liberal-leaning foundations.
Yeah.
And found that the conservative-leaning ones were so much more effective. And she analyzed what they do. Here's the things that they do. Like one is like they build institutions. And to build institutions, they fund organizations like 20 years at a time.
Oh my God.
Right? So over here on the progressive side, we're lucky if we get like a 2-year grant. 3-year grant. 5 years we're falling on the ground, kissing the ground. But they're like, here's 20 years of funding. 20 years. And it's huge, significant amounts of money. It's general operating funds, right? So they build institutions. They support their cultural warriors, which is why we have like so many conservative pundits. We can name like a dozen immediately, right? You and I can just name a bunch of them.
Easily.
We don't do that on the progressive side, which is why we have amazing people, but they're not anywhere near funded the same way that the right funds its cultural warriors. They're fully engaged in politics. So they know that getting politicians elected, right-wing politicians elected, it will help solve every single issue that they care about. They know that they control the judiciary, which is why they spend literally billions of dollars to shape the Supreme Court over the past several decades. And they control the media. That's why you see like every single media, Fox News, Sinclair, even like MSNBC, CNN, all of them have become more and more right because they know if they control that, they can control the propaganda. And that's what happened. Like those 5 key strategies, we just need to do them. We won't.
Why?
Well, I think one is because, again, people benefit from this. If the conservative movements and they're aligned with their strategies, right? Whereas on the progressive side, if we actually accomplish what we set out to do, it would actually create an existential threat to many of the people in power who would give money to do this in the first place. For example, foundations. If we were successful, then we wouldn't have foundations. We wouldn't have people. We wouldn't have philanthropists, right? We wouldn't have people to treat like heroes and write handwritten thank you notes to. They like that. They don't examine that. And the other thing is like there's this white moderate problem that identifies one of like the 9 horsemen of nonprofit ineffectiveness in the book. And white moderation is what Dr. King in his letter from a Birmingham jail wrote. He's like the biggest threat to justice are not the people burning crosses and wearing hoods and stuff. It's the very nice people on the side who are like, can we all just get along? Like, why are you being so rude? Can you just wait? Can you go through the right channel? Can you ask nicer? Yeah. And an example of this is, I think it was Beto O'Rourke, who was, I think it was a few years ago when there was another school shooting and like another mass shooting. Many children were murdered. And he was so mad that he went and I think he was cussing. He was using the F word when talking about because he was so mad about all these kids being massacred.
Yep.
And you know what? He got in trouble because he used the F word. People were more mad at him for using the F word than they were about children being massacred in school. Yeah. Like that's an example of white moderation. People are like, we need to be more civil to one another versus, what do we need to do to address injustice?
I have so many thoughts, and I'm thinking about what the leader or what the listener is wanting to ask in this moment. For somebody that is listening in right now that wants to create change, wants to be a disruptor, they want to be able to do much more, but they recognize that boldness and courage that you have may cost them and it may bring certain consequences. What do you say to that person?
I would say that's completely valid. those concerns are valid. I mean, I have burned a bunch of bridges with people, for sure. I know there's a few foundations who hate my guts. Lots of people, especially fundraising experts, who've been teaching people how to do fundraising for a long time,
Yeah.
who've built careers out of telling people like you need to treat donors like heroes,
Yeah.
and weave a narrative about how they're heroes and need to thank them all the time. I'm like, no, you're actually causing injustice doing that, and they hate my guts. So yeah, your fears are valid, and at the same time, we got to start thinking about what is our role in this moment, and what have the people in the past, like civil rights leaders in the past, and what do we owe to them to today, right?
Mm.
And also, I would also encourage those of us who have more privilege. So those of us who are male or white, able-bodied, neurotypical, cisgender, and so on, we have more privilege. And throughout history, it's always been like the people who are most on the margins, oftentimes women of color, trans people, disabled people, who have had to summon the courage because to like speak up against all these injustices, and they have always been the ones who have been punished for it.
Yeah.
So I start thinking of that when I start thinking like, should I be brave in this moment, or and I think about it, I have to be, because I have more privilege than a lot of people, and I need to figure out how to use that privilege.
Hey, it's Kyle. Sorry to interrupt your programming, but I got a quick culture check for you. How's your team's energy right now? I mean, literally, right now. Are people feeling inspired? Or are they just showing up? See, here's the truth. Culture doesn't change because we talk about it. It changes because we live it actively every single day. And that's what I help organizations do. Build contagious cultures that people actually want to be a part of. Through keynote talks, interactive trainings, and hands-on consulting, I help leaders transform the way their teams connect, perform, and grow. So if your culture needs a little bit of spark, let's light it up together. Visit theculturelab.org, again, theculturelab.org, or connect with me directly on LinkedIn at Kyle S. King to learn more about how we can work together. Because remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching. Now let's get back to the program. Walk me back through your career that got you to here.
Yeah.
Like, what were the steps that you took that, and really the moments and the things that you had to experience before you wrote your book, before you started your blogs, before you started really sharing your message and your perspectives? What were those beginning foundational bricks that you had to lay prior to you building what you've built today?
Yeah, well, I got a degree in social work, which made my parents very proud. They were not proud, especially since I dropped out of pre-med to become a social worker.
Oh man.
Right. And then but I was like, I don't want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
I think we didn't have enough people in like community development and organizing and social work type stuff. And so I thought I'm going to go and where I'm really needed, even though no one in my community understands or appreciates it. And I'm probably going to end up very poor. And so I got my master's in social work, and I got no one would hire me because I had no experience. So I got into this program that was under AmeriCorps, and that sent me to an organization that was really focused on community, the Vietnamese community. And I was there at this organization that had a budget of, I think, like $14,000 or something. And I was sent there, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? This organization has no infrastructure. There's I looked at the filing cabinet. There was like some Wendy's wrappers or something in there. I was like, oh shoot. But throughout that year, I realized like a lot of things that I had learned in my master's in social work program were things that didn't really apply to a lot of communities that were on the margin. It's like I learned how to run basically a white-led organization. So a lot of the things that I learned were not only ineffective, but sometimes kind of destructive. Like I remembered going to a funder and saying, hey, what do we need to do so that you will give us money? You won't give my organization money. And they said, well, your board members have been on your board for way too long. You need to get rid of them or we're not going to give you any money. So I went to my board members and I said, y'all got to go. It's all your fault that we're not getting any money. And they were so hurt, right? They were so hurt. And I realized I learned this valuable lesson that these were board members who had gone through a war. They went through the Vietnam War. They were traumatized and they lost their sense of identity. You know, like they lost their homeland. They lost a lot of family members. They nearly lost their lives. Now they're over here and they just want to build some sense of identity and community again. And so they joined this board.
Wow.
Right. And so the board was not just something for them, like a hobby for them or like a nice thing to do that for most people who join board, you know, or even a career builder sometimes, or a combination of those things. For them, it was like a deep sense of identity and community. So for me, this asshole to come in and be like, y'all got to go.
I got to leave.
Because these random people that I just met just said that you need to go. Like that was very disrespectful, right? So I went to the funders and I said, actually, I realized that that's not respectful for me to ask them to leave. Like, why do I have to ask them to leave? Like, if they are doing their work here and it gives them meaning and is helping the organization, then why do they need to leave? Why can't you just fund this community because it needs the funding? Yeah. Why do we need to play these games of yours and fit into your image of what an effective board looks like?
That's good.
Yeah. So then that made me realize that all the shit that we've been learning, fundraising, boards, you know, like everything, is all like they don't necessarily apply or are effective to many communities that we're trying to serve. And so the model has to change.
If you could design a model that we started to implement within the nonprofit sector starting tomorrow, what would it look like?
Oh, Kyle, I mean, that's very
I know it's a complex question.
Distill some stuff down, you know, into this into like a simple model. In the book Reimagining Nonprofits and Philanthropy, I kind of go through, okay, this is what fundraising should look like. This is what boards should look like. I mean, like talking about boards, for example, like, do we need to have this same standard board model? Do we need to have Robert's rules with the I motion this and I second, blah, 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 you know? That wasn't designed for a group of 9 people. That was like some dude named Henry Martin Robert, who in like 1876 took the U.S. Congress parliamentary procedures and wrote them down into a book. And now 150 years later, we're still using this. It was designed for like a group of 400 people, not like 9 people eating hummus and voltage crackers, you know? So, but we're still using that. So like, we don't need to have a board that looks like that. Or leadership. Do we need to have one CEO or one ED, one executive director at the top? This is a model that we inherited from the corporate sector. Do we need that? And a lot of people are saying no. So they're starting to move towards co-directorship or flatter structures where there's like no leadership at all. And everyone has a different, you know, like a dynamic with one another.
Interesting. Okay? Can we expound on that a little bit more? Like, I'm interested in that one. Co-leadership, flat model. Talk to me a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, my last organization called RVC was experimenting. You know, we were reading a book called Reimagining Organizations or something like that.
Yeah.
Dang it. I should probably know the name of this book because we spent so much time reading it. It was by a guy named Frederick Laloux. Okay. And he was talking about like these new sort of like new models of organizations and what we need to do. And and it was like distributed leadership. It was about like flatter structures. It was about self-management. It wasn't about like hierarchy of. And one of the hallmarks of it was like this decision-making model called the advice process, where if you are in charge of that area, then you're the person to make the decision. And I, as the executive director, can't veto you and your decisions. As long as you do a couple things. One is you check in with everyone who will be affected by your decision, and you check in with the people who have knowledge that can help you make the best decision. But once you get those things, then I can't veto. Like, so if you were my fundraising, you know, lead, right? And you're like, and you decide, hey, Vu, I'm going. I've decided we're gonna have a pajama party for major donors. Okay. Anyone who gives over $1,000, they're gonna attend this pajama party. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'd be like, that's a horrible idea, but I can't really say that. I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, did you check in with people who will be affected by this decision? Did you check in other staff who might have to help you with this? Did you talk to other people who've thrown a pajama party for major donors before?
Wow.
And if you're like, yeah, I have done all those things, I did my due diligence, then I can't say, I'm sorry, Kyle, you can't do that.
That's interesting.
So yeah, it's fascinating because if you think about it, why we hire other staff, we hire HR staff, program staff, because they have stuff that we don't have.
Exactly.
We don't have the skills or the experience, right? If I'm hiring an HR person, it's probably because I don't have the HR experience. So why, just because I'm the executive director, I get to veto what they say?
And that's where the challenge comes in, because we hire an executive director, in my opinion, for leadership, for guidance, for vision. But then we have that person that's not an expert in HR, or not an expert in branding and marketing, and not an expert in finances. And we can't expect that executive director is an expert in all of those other realms. So I love that model. I'm interested in that model.
Well, if you think about it, this idea that the higher up in the model and in the hierarchy that you are, somehow you have the right to veto everyone else beneath you.
That's good.
And it makes no sense. And you think about it, it's not just in work, it's about philanthropy too, right? Who are the most powerful people? It's these board members of foundations, right? So then they're like the most powerful people. So then they're like, well, this year we care about early learning or whatever it is. So now we're going to force everyone to align, right? But that doesn't make any sense when it's the people on the ground, the community members who have to live their lives every single day in these unjust systems, who would know what they need the most.
Yeah.
So why don't these powerful people actually trust the people on the ground and saying, hey, we listen to our communities and we're just going to go and follow their lead. This is what they said that they need. We're going to fund that.
Exactly.
They don't do that.
Just for our listeners, the book that Vu mentioned is Reinventing Organizations, a Guide to Creating Organizations Inspired by the Next Stage in Human Consciousness. Is that the book, Vu?
I believe it is. Frederick Laloux. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. I'm interested in, you mentioned it, and then we focused in on this leadership model. If you were to redesign boards and how we implement board meetings and recruit board members and our expectations for board of directors, what would that look like?
Yeah. In the book in chapter, I think it was maybe chapter 4, when I talk about boards, I talk about one of my biggest mistakes ever was how I took this amazing board. When I first founded my organization, RVC, we had this incredible board. It looked like the community, and it met quarterly. It was 30 or 40 or 80 people would show up for this meeting. We would have childcare, we would have activities for kids. We would we had food. It would last 3 hours, and then during that time, we would vote on our values and the strategic direction. It was so great. And then as we got more and more money, I was like, you know what we need? We need a traditional board of 8 people once a month and yell at me for stuff and be extremely risk averse towards everything. And so we moved away from that amazing community model into this traditional model. And it was awful. I nearly quit several times because of how I took these amazing leaders who were incredible as individuals, but then placed them into this structure that trained them to be risk averse and to treat staff as if they're people to be distrustful of instead of partners to work towards. So I think we got to rethink that. Some organizations are, I describe the minimally viable board, for example, which is a board that just does the very basic minimum stuff. Yeah, that's legal compliance, and it might be partnered with a community board like the one that I had, and that community board doesn't have any official or formal legal power, but it's the ones that drive values and directions and stuff, right? People are moving. I think a lot of people are starting to explore different ways of conducting board meetings where it's not so structured and corporate and stuff. We start thinking about how Native communities run their meetings, community gatherings. It's more circular than hierarchical. Or maybe everyone has a chance to say something and it goes in a round and stuff, So there are certain things we can do differently with boards.
One of the early conversations that we had, I saw one of the videos that you posted. This was a little while ago, and it was like, look, we need money. Like we don't need more strategy. We need money. We don't need more of this and that and that. Like, we need money. Can you expound on this? Is a twofold, I guess, question. The importance, obviously, of capital within organizations, but why nonprofit leaders or just individuals in this space just don't ever want to really have these real conversations about the importance of money in their organizations?
Yeah, it's well, first of all, funders don't want to give out money. At least the progressive leaning funders don't, because they believe, I think in many ways, it's this lack of imagination. They don't think that we're able to solve these problems and then not be in existence anymore. So they constantly think that the future is going to be bleak, and so they need to save up for it. So that's why most foundations only give out 5% of their endowments every year, and they hoard 95% of their endowments, to save up for the future.
Wow.
So this very scarcity mindset has then trickled down to nonprofit leaders who have, over a long period of time, start thinking, oh my gosh, there really isn't enough money to go around. We gotta start being like scrappy and not ask for too much and stuff. And so over decades, that's what happens. Create this learned helplessness, this lack of ambition. And I think to the point where we forget what ambition even looks like.
What does it look like?
Well, in the book, I talk about Juicero, which is probably one of my favorite stories to tell. Juicero was a Wi-Fi connected juicing machine, everyone, okay? It came out of Silicon Valley. It was $700. And you buy this Wi-Fi connected juicing machine, and you have to subscribe to these proprietary packets of cut up fruit and vegetables for $7 each. You take out one packet and put it into this machine, and it squeezes out one glass of juice. And Bloomberg Media did an investigation where they took the packets and squeezed them by hand and got almost the same amount of juice. So they wrote about this, and Juicero basically became a laughingstock and went bankrupt immediately, which is why many of us haven't heard about it. But you know what? Before they went bankrupt, they had $125 million or more in venture capital.
Oh my God.
They were out there boasting about how much capital they were getting. They were boasting about how they had 50 full-time engineers and food scientists working to design this Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. That's what ambition looks like. All right. But meanwhile, in our sector, we're like, can we please get $19 to end poverty? And the funder's like, we'll give you $1. Because we're saving up the other $18 in our endowments for future poverty and stuff. How do we solve problems when this is how we've been trained to think? I want us to have the audacity of a Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. I want everyone who works in nonprofit to add a 0 or 2 to their budgets, to their asks of funders. Because if we're going to solve homelessness and poverty and racism and all this stuff, we're going to have to be a lot more ambitious. We're going to have to be a lot more imaginative than we have been.
Yeah. I love that perspective. It reminds me of a good friend of mine, Lindsay Fuller, out of Southern California. She's running an organization called The Teaching Well, and she talks about that a lot with funders. Like $15,000 is not going to be able to help me. So I need another 0. Like I need 150. I need $1 million to be able to really drive change forward in this field.
For 20 years, ideally. Yeah, per year.
Multi-year funding, unrestricted. Vu, there's so many leaders that are listening that have so many thoughts, so many perspectives, and even listening to you. What's your advice? Like, how can, in a few sentences, in a few words, how can we approach this thing differently so that we can actually create a system that works inclusively for everyone and really be able to create an equal balance of power?
Yeah, I would say one of my friends says something, and she said, this is all made up. She said, no, that's what she said. This is all made up. Everything is made up. like all these rules about boards and fundraising and all, it's all made up. It's made up by people. And what that means is that we can make up other stuff that might be better. We're not beholden to these rules here. So if you're like, I don't want to do Robert's rules. Well, no one said you have to do Robert's rules. It's not a legal requirement saying that you have to use Robert's rules.
That's true.
Or, I don't think we should have just one ED, because I mean, EDs are burning out all the time. Nonprofit leaders burn out all the time because you have one person who's has to do all this stuff. Well, who says you can't have like two directors? In many corporations, for example, they would have like a CEO and a CFO and a CTO and a COO. We just take all those positions and roll them, squish them into one person. Right. And then we wonder why they burn out here.
Yeah.
So no one says you only have one person leading the organization. Why not have two? Why not have zero? It's all made up. So that's one thing, is really being able to free yourselves from this idea that many of these things are immutable and unchangeable. Like things are changeable. There's only a few things that you can't really change. I think about, for example, over the past couple of years, nonprofits have been threatened with like having their 501c3 tax status removed because they talk about DEI or whatever, and all these nonprofits like, oh my gosh, no, we're gonna get our tax status removed. That's scary. Yeah, I mean, it can be scary. Sure, I'm not gonna dismiss people's fears about this, but should that stop you? What is the 501c3 tax status? If you get your tax status removed, you can still do work. You can form an LLC. You can form a church. It's actually really easy to form a church. You can form a church right now and continue doing what you've been doing. Because it's all made up. You can follow like the Church of Kyle King right now and just keep doing your charitable work. And people can still take tax deductibles for their donations.
Wow.
Right? So we got to start thinking a lot bigger and start realizing all this stuff is made up. I want us to be less deferential and more angry and more organized. A story that I tell in the book on the chapter on advocacy was like, there was a colleague who told me that, in this audience I was giving a keynote to, that every year the local newspaper in her city publishes a list of the 10 organizations with the highest overhead rates in order to name and shame them. Like, look at these horrible organizations spending all this money on overhead, on staff salaries, instead of it going into the people and stuff. And the colleague was like, oh, we're so terrified of being on this list, And then everyone else in the audience was like, you know what you should do? You should allocate more money. You should use Excel formulas to allocate more money into programming and less into like administrative. That will like cut down your overhead rate so it makes it look better. And people just keep giving that type of advice until someone else is like, why are we putting up with this? Why don't we all organize and write an op-ed to the local newspaper jointly and saying that this is actually really terrible. It's not helpful. It's destructive. It's ignorant. It's toxic. Yeah. Why don't we do that? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. They just didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
We don't think about like, how do we organize better? Instead, it's always been like, how do we endure all the shit that's put on us?
That's good.
So start organizing.
Vu, this conversation has inspired me to start fighting more intentionally, more often, and harder for the things, for the people, for the causes, for the communities that I even care about. So I appreciate you for that. Where can people find you? How can people continue to engage with your work and just support you as you continue to push these initiatives forward?
Oh, thank you, Kyle. I have a blog called Nonprofit AF, which stands for Nonprofit and Fearless. I'm on Instagram, also at Nonprofit AF, and on Facebook. I don't know. I might start maybe a stand-up comedy show at some point, maybe, and pitch it to Netflix. If anyone has connections to Netflix or one of the streaming services, let me know.
I got you, Vu. I got a contact. I got a guy. Look, anybody listening right now, this is Vu Le. He is amazing, as you can hear. He's doing inspiring work. He is an author, trailblazer, disruptor. And he's somebody that is a trusted voice in the social impact industry that we need to learn from. Let's commit to doing things different. Let's commit to not following the rules, breaking some rules, breaking some barriers so that we can be able to build bridges for our community. If you're a listener still listening in, one of the questions that we always ask is, what type of culture are you spreading? The energy you bring is the culture you create. This is another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast with Kyle King and Vu Le. And thanks for tuning in to the Contagious Culture Podcast. If this episode challenged or inspired you, hey, take a second to share it with someone who's building culture in their world. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more leaders, educators, and change makers just like yourself join the movement. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or YouTube at Kyle S. King for more tips, tools, and methodologies to be able to help you create this ecosystem of absolute excellence. Until next time, lead boldly, live intentionally, and remember, your culture is contagious. Make it worth catching.